This is part 10 in a series of videos in which I'm attempting to repair this HP9862A plotter. In the videos so far in this series, I've gone through the basic hardware, completely stripped the machine down, reassembled it, made a few of the missing parts, gone through the electronics. I've put together a simple PIC-based controller just so I can control it without needing to connect it to a calculator. And the PIC controller at the moment is just set up to draw a rectangle on the paper, on the chart. But before I can test it, I need to make a holder for the pens. So as I mentioned previously, I don't have the pen holder and I don't have any pens for this. Luckily, a subscriber was kind enough to send me some photographs of the pen holder on his machine, and so going from those I made some highly detailed DaveCAD drawings, and from these I've 3D printed, as you can see, a version of the pen holder. Made some slight modifications to what I think was the version on the original. On the original it's got a square tip to this taper and it gives it quite a strong snap action either forward or back, which I didn't really like. So I've rounded it off on here just very slightly and it gives a much smoother, it's not quite as violent when it lowers the pen. And I've also put the stop slightly further forward. On the original, the back stop put this vertical, and I didn't really want it completely vertical. It makes it easy to put the pen in if it's at an angle. So I've done that. It mounts with a small pin running through it. So this is what it looks like when it's not fitted. I've put a bayonet fitting attachment, and this is exactly the same size as what I believe is the original pen holder. So it should in theory accept real authentic pens, but I don't have any, so I had to make up some pen holders. This pad here is set in the same position as on the original, and this is just the pivot point to raise and lower the pen. And then there's a hole going through the back here that the mounting pin runs through. There's a spring that sits on this little bracket that is responsible for applying downward pressure to the pen. And if you recall from a previous video, I had to kind of guess at the spring tension on the spring that's responsible for raising and lowering this bar. This is the solenoid operated pen lower, because I didn't have the spring, so I didn't know how strong it should be, and it works in conjunction with this one. But it does seem to work quite well, so I'm hoping it's going to operate the way it should. I also put a notch in the center of this, so that will guide this center spring, and it will stop the spring sort of wandering around and hopefully give a nice positive action. The next thing I needed were some actual pen holders. So this is the mount for the pen. So again, going from some dimensions that were sent through to me by a subscriber, I've put together a simple pen holder. Now, I'm not going to spend a lot of money on original pens, and I decided what I was going to do is make a pen holder that will accept the center out of cheap biros. It won't give as good an image, but I'm not looking to produce professional plots. I'm just looking to get this working so that I can experiment with it and see if it actually works. So at the moment I just have dowels in here. I've got some Delrin rod on order, and when that comes in I'll replace these little dowels with that. I've made the pen holder so it looks a bit like the original, very similar in size, except that it accepts these inserts, these biro inserts, and then the final length is the same as it should be on the original. And then these just fit into here and then quarter turn and they lock into position. Again, I think that's how the originals work. So of course I can now fit this to the machine. So next thing is to fit a piece of paper and see if it actually works. So the way this is configured, the PIC controller will kick in as soon as I power it up, so we'll see what it does. I expect there's still going to be a problem because I haven't straightened this bar out yet, so it might get caught up on that, but we'll see what happens. So, okay, that's looking like it's going to work. We can see the pen's not touching at the lower part of the rectangle, and that's where this bar's bent up. So it's kind of bowed up about 2 millimeters from about here down pretty much to the end, and that's raising the pen. This should not be touching this when the pen's lowered. So the next thing is I'll take this bar back out, straighten it, refit it, and see if the plotter then works the way it should do. Okay, so I've straightened this as much as I can, so looking down it lengthways it's now reasonably straight. It's got a very slight kink in it, but I don't want to go too far with this. If I do put a serious kink in, then it will be very difficult to get it back out. The kink's less than about a 20th of a millimetre now, so I'm pretty sure that's well within acceptable limits for this. It was about 2 millimetre raised kind of hump in the centre, and that's what was lifting the pen away from the paper. So I'll get this refitted, refit the spring and the lift lever, and we'll see if this is any better. Okay, I've got the bar refitted. I did have to adjust the spring tension a little bit, have to increase it slightly, and fresh piece of paper, and we'll try printing again, see what happens. Okay, well, it's probably washed out a bit on the camera. Looking through the viewfinder, it does seem to be fairly faint, but it is printing quite nicely. So it's not as vibrant as a proper plotter pen would be. They tend to use kind of felt tip type pens rather than ballpoints. But I can of course put anything I want in here now, and all I have to do is make up the adapter to fit whatever I intend to use. And now that I have the pattern for it, it should be fairly easy to do that. So yes, it's looking like it's pretty much there. I just need to find some replacement knobs, a little bit more tidying up, and then I think this project is almost complete.